Mebota na pino nionso, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Safari Mack Returns to Africa. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. All right, well, maybe I need a lot of work on my Lingala phrases because today we begin our trek west in Africa to begin our time in the jungle region, starting in the African country of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where today we are invited in thanks to a very shy by nature and very secretive and somewhat very not fully understood creature. The forest elephant, or known by their Latin name of Loxodonta cyclotis. But before we begin, if you're new to my channel, hit that like and subscribe button, check out my Facebook page for content on conservation, and if you have a question about animals or an animal request, send me an email. You'll always find the link to it down in the description below. But if you're ready, let's get started. Now, in terms of their evolution and their family, we've actually already kind of begun the evolutionary course for the elephant in general, thanks to one of my previous episodes during our first trek in Africa, as we uncovered the African Big Five. So if you want to learn about elephant evolution, be sure to go check out part 1 of the African elephant, which I will also leave the link to at the end of this episode today. But for now, let's get back to our subject, the African forest elephant. As you can see, they are very much different from their cousins on the African grasslands, or what you would like to call the bush elephant. And of course, they're very much different from their other cousin, the Asian elephant. See, it was thought that for the longest time that this was a kind of special subspecies of African elephant, but really it's actually its own species thanks to very special adaptations. You see, it's thought that 2 to 5 million years ago, these animals split apart from the African bush elephant, and as a result, because they began to adapt living in the jungles, and as tropical rainforests began to expand and retreat, the climate, as well as special environmental factors, favored these animals to live in this special habitat. As you can see, they're much smaller than their cousins in the grasslands, and have smaller ears, and and their tusks actually kind of go downwards and not outwards like out on the grasslands, which is perfect for navigating through the dense foliage. Now, for their habitat, their lifestyle, and their reproduction. Wherever there is jungle in the region, this elephant is well at home. As you can see, from what scientists have been able to discover, Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the largest population currently holds these animals in the African country of Gabon, where it's actually good thing because 90% of the country is perfect habitat for these creatures. But now, are you looking for the big herds? Well, let me tell you something. This is it, actually. So, unlike their cousins on the African savannas, these creatures do not live in huge herds, though it has been documented that as many as 20 elephants might be living together. It really is a much smaller, like very smaller society. In fact, here's how small. It's mostly comprised of mom and her kids. That's right. All these calves are hers. Originally born, and I can tell you their reproductive cycle is very different from those on the savannas. Now, while females tend to have anywhere from 3 to even 8 elephants at a time, males are completely on their own. Unlike on the savanna, where some males may gather together in bachelor groups, learning from older bulls how to be male elephants, these guys don't do that. They live completely on their own, only coming to socialize with the females only when it's time for breeding. Now, generally, like I said, they do not really live in big groups, and they will not always want to mingle with each other for competition of food. But who's to say that they will not gather together in times of plenty, or at these special places called bayas, which can be mineral licks or even mineral rich watering holes. There they can socialize, they can talk with one another, they can do what they need to, but generally family groups only stick with their family groups. They really do not make a gigantic herd. Now, and I'm sorry, I almost forgot about one other thing. Their reproduction life is very, very complex. In fact, here's how complex. Female elephants will reach reproduction age or will become mature at around 8 to 12 years, right? That's usually on average. But the first time that a mom will ever have her calf, it won't be until she's in her 20s. And then, unlike their cousins on the savannah, which may give birth to one calf once every 3 or 4 years, it may be 5 or 6 years before mom is ready to tackle on the responsibility of another calf. If you can recall from my previous episode of the African elephant, how because of elephants living together in big herds, it really helps them out, especially with all the females working together to help mom raise the kid. As I once said, it takes a village to raise a child. As you can see, because of the smaller families, you can easily see why it's a long time before mom is ready to have more children. Now, basically, what are elephants? You guessed it, they're herbivores. Now, for forest elephants, they have a very, very complex diet. Almost a big percentage of their diet is fruit. And I mean lots and lots of fruit. So much fruit that they actually cannot be sticking to one area for long. And all the other different plants in this area can become food for an elephant, but there's an unexpected hidden danger side effect. A number of the plants in here, including some of these fruits, they are toxic. You know how they say the jungle really consumes the weak, or the strong only survive? I really want to believe that in terms of the plants, because it is kind of like a saying, anything that is not you wants to kill or destroy you. So the thing about this, thankfully they have a number of varieties of fruit that they can feed from, over 350 different kinds in fact. And many of these plants have evolved for so long now that they need elephants to be able to pass on their seeds, as elephants do a major impact, which I will not share until the next part 2 episode of the forest elephant. But so to compensate for this, elephants might feed in one area for just a short while and then move on to the next, and then to the next, and to the next. So, despite being different from their savanna cousins, the African forest elephant still maintains the elephant style of eating, basically eating for many, many hours a day, but only because they're trying to find the right nutrition so that they don't accidentally kill themselves. Now, their influence in human culture really is an important one. They have been omens, they have been spirits, they have been guides. And of course, they've been famous in the Western hemisphere. Not just Disney's style, I'm sure we all know that's Tantor from Disney's Tarzan. But what about the elephants in the original Tarzan? That's right. So if you wanted to be specific, the elephants that Tarzan is with are forest elephants. But here's the thing. Back in those days of Hollywood, African elephants were deemed as way too wild, way too dangerous to fully train. And so they were using Asian elephants, and so to make it look like they were African, they had huge stick-on ears. But for me, my greatest inspiration for these creatures of the African forest elephants happens to come from one of my childhood favorite movies from Nickelodeon, the Wild Thornberrys movie, where the title character helped save this species from a horrible poaching act. Now, I'm afraid that's all the time I have for this part, so join me next week for part 2. But until then, I'll see you all out there.